Welcome to For Health's Sake podcast. I'm your host, Jana Vellas, the founder of Golden Groves. This podcast is proudly brought to you by Imbibe, where clean beauty meets clinical innovation. Their products are designed to promote glowing skin, a healthy gut, and deep restorative sleep because true radiance starts from within. Welcome to the first episode of For Health's Sake. This is something that I've wanted to do for so long. I have felt within myself that I haven't been able to share enough of my personality and my wisdom just through content. And I've wanted to share a lot of my voice and my own journey with health, wellness, and with myself. I wanted the ability to connect with you guys on a deeper level in more of a long form of content, which is why I've been manifesting having a podcast for so long. I know so many of you guys have also messaged me being like, when are you going to come out with a podcast? You have so much wisdom when it comes down to health and to business. So today is finally the day, and I'm so excited to share this episode with you. I have found within the last few years, I've evolved a lot, but particularly within the last 6 months. And now we've just commenced the year of the horse, which is essentially the year where we put in all the action to make our dreams come true and live and embody that magnetic life. Now, if you've been following me for a while, or if you have read my Substack, you will know I am so big on New Year's resolutions, and I know some people it can be quite resistant to them. And I think the reason why is because often we dream these really big goals, we put a lot of pressure and expectation on ourselves, but we don't come up with how we actually will achieve these goals. And let me tell you something, the proof is in the habits. So I'm going to walk you guys step by step how I come up with my goals and then the habits that actually allow me to fulfill them. So the first thing I do is at the end of the year, which right now, because the year of the horse is commencing, this feels like the end of the year / the start of the year for me. So what I do is I'll do an audit. I'll reflect on the last year and particularly how I felt. And I will really reflect and think what type of energy, and more importantly, how do I want to feel going into this next year? Because so often we set these targets and we might meet them, but once you actually realize that goal and it happens for you, it might not actually feel as good as what you think it will feel. And sometimes that's because we're actually assuming other people's, whether it's external sources, your friends, your family, social media's idea of what is success, what is good. So for me, I like to tap into how I want to feel. For me personally, how I want to feel this year is expansive. I feel like I've done a lot of introspection. I've done a lot of the foundation, and this year I want to expand a lot within myself as a person, have a lot more courage, take more risks, do more things that make me feel more nervous, and also expand a lot within my business. So after I've come up with that feeling and I've set out all of my goals, I think what habits are going to carry me, because you need to meet yourself exactly where you're at. You can't expect to be a marathon runner when you haven't even walked a kilometer. So I say to myself, my goal is to get 1% better each day. What habits are separating me from where I am today to where I will be in the future? So with that said, my first habit that I swear by and I've been doing for years is, sorry to the people that are not early birds and morning people, I used to not be, but it's waking up 30 minutes earlier than what you ideally would like to. I'm not saying cut down your sleep. Maybe perhaps it's going to bed a little bit earlier. Why I suggest you waking up earlier is because you need time to yourself, to your own thoughts, to your own energy before you go and start to go and meet other people's needs. So for example, I like to start my morning. I'll wake up at 6:20 in the morning, usually 6 o'clock or 6:20. I like to scrape my tongue. I like to make myself a coffee and actually just sit with no music, without scrolling social media. I think to myself, how weird would it be if all of the people that were following me on social media were sitting in my bedroom in the morning watching me drink my coffee. It's probably not that normal and probably would make me feel really uncomfortable. So I think, you know what? I'm going to have this time to myself so I can just think and be. How often do we actually allow ourselves to just be with no pressure, with no expectations? I'll have my coffee for 5 minutes, and then what I'll do is I will meditate. This has been something that I've introduced newly into my life, and I'll delve into that a little bit later why it is so important. But taking that time to meditate with my red light going actually allows me to start my morning feeling really present, tapping into my breath, and feeling this sense of calmness rather than rushing through my day. When you wake up with 10 minutes to go between brushing your teeth, having a coffee, leaving the house, you're in this rush, and that energy carries itself throughout your day, and you lose that presence and that connection with yourself. So that is the first thing that I do. My second habit, which I honestly feel like is the key to living an aligned life, is nervous system regulation. I do this through a number of ways, but particularly what has moved the needle for me the most has been my daily meditation. I have learned the hard way. You can do everything. You can eat the organic diet, remove any processed foods. You can walk 10,000 steps a day, do the Pilates, do the strength training, go to the healers, take all the supplements. But at the end of the day, if you do not feel safe in your own body, you cannot, firstly, heal any sort of chronic conditions you might have. And you also aren't able to feel connected to yourself. I think the majority of us, and it's not our fault, but the majority of us are living in this constant state of fight or flight. That's because we're constantly overstimulated, whether it's with social media, text, being constantly available to people through messaging, work, etc. But one thing is, it is your responsibility to carve out the time to make yourself feel safe. Now, I know it's really difficult to bring yourself there to meditate in the morning. And you know what? For you, that might be, if you're just starting out on your nervous system regulation journey, that might be too big of a jump for you. But you need to choose something that works for you. So for a large period of time, what I used to do was I would go for a walk, either a morning walk or I would walk after dinner or before dinner. And I would just take that time to myself to unwind, listen to something that inspires me. Maybe it was like a podcast. Other days, you know what? I didn't actually want more information. That was overloading me. I just wanted to listen to some music. And then as I felt like, you know what, I want to get to know myself better. I want to process my emotions a little bit more. I started getting into journaling. That is when you're able to learn more about yourself and get to know yourself more intimately. Remove the pressure. I know there's probably a lot of people listening to this that are perfectionists. I've been there. I'm a Virgo, okay? That says enough. But write without any inhibition, without feeling like people are going to see your journal. Your spelling doesn't need to be correct. No one is going to read this. If you don't feel comfortable writing in a journal, write in the notes section of your phone. Hide your notes. Delete it afterwards. Anything that is going to allow you to feel understood and like you'll process your emotions. And then maybe if you feel up to it, maybe if you feel courageous enough, you can actually sit with yourself and you can allow yourself to breathe. I love to do meditations with an app called Open. I've been meditating with Open for years, but in particular, I have a streak where I think I've meditated almost every day for 6 months. And why I love Open in particular, because this isn't sponsored, is at the beginning of the podcast, at the beginning of the meditation, what happens is these meditations are automatically generated for you each day. And a different theme is brought up every day and a different quote. And you are taken on a journey. First, you're spoken to, but then you're taught to breathe through these different feelings. So we touch on different topics. We touch on topics of failure. We touch on topics of fear, on courage, on self talk, on feelings of overwhelm. And I find myself through exploring these different topics, I'm seeing how they land with me and how I am personally experiencing them in my own life. And when you sit with yourself, yes, it's confronting, and yes, you need to feel those feelings yourself, but no one needs to know. And it's your own journey. And I find that that actually removes a lot of the pressure because no one knows your relationship with yourself. You know your relationship with yourself. So often we buy into other people's stories, other people's adjectives, or the way they describe us or how they see us. None of that matters. All that matters is how you see yourself. And when you start to make that commitment to yourself and you realize how good it feels to breathe through your day, you will realize that you are a completely different person. I can tell you. And I'm someone where I've been doing wellness has been my whole entire life for at least 10 years. But up until about 6 months ago, by the time I got to 3 or 4 o'clock, I would feel so overwhelmed. My breath was so caught up in my chest. I felt like if I received another email, if I received another text, I was about to explode, and I'd push through it. And my idea of taking a break was scrolling on social media. That comes at a massive price of your health, and you start to question, is any of this really worth it? The things that you do in your day-to-day life are meant to be enjoyed. And sometimes the difference between you actually enjoying something or the difference between you actually attracting an opportunity is actually being able to sit with yourself and breathe through that and regulate yourself. The most important part of all of this, all of the nervous system work is actually, and what my greatest lesson and insight has been is that I've been able to learn to trust myself and trust my own journey. And that is the hardest thing I think you can possibly do within yourself, but it is the most rewarding thing. The last thing I want to add on nervous system regulation is actually an experience that I had. I didn't want to start meditating, truthfully. I was resisting it at all costs because I just constantly felt like I was in this state of being overstimulated. But it wasn't until I had an experience that was an interpersonal challenge that I was having within my business. And I obviously work for myself, I run my own business, but you can't have a business in isolation. You constantly have to deal with other people. And I had a stakeholder that was causing me a lot of stress. There was a lot of uncertainty in this situation. They weren't communicating, and I was petrified. Petrified that everything was going to go wrong, that I was going to have to shut down my business because I wasn't receiving a response from them. And that was a time where I was like, you know what, I just have to trust that this is all going to work out. And it's going to work out in my favor. And whatever will be, will be. And that's when I learned, okay, the only way I'm not going to allow myself to spiral is if I learn to trust myself through my breathing. And that's really what carried me over during that situation. And I think of like a past version of myself. I probably would have gotten a cold, would have been in bed for a week because I would have stressed myself out of my mind. So I'm telling you, you can have the exact same situation, but show up completely differently through you taking the time to regulate yourself and your breath. The third habit, which is again something that is easier said than done and is a constant work in progress, is learning to speak to yourself like your best friend. I think we all doubt ourselves. I think we can all be our harshest critics. But I think women in particular, we are so hard on ourselves. I think about the way that I see myself, the way that my friends see themselves. And I often will compare this to maybe the way that my dad sees himself or other men in my life see themselves. There's no comparison. We often will pick ourselves apart and make ourselves feel miserable, whether it's like picking apart what your body looks like, what you're wearing, if you didn't eat in a way that was aligned to how you want to eat, whether you don't have the clothes, the car, the boyfriend. Everyone is constantly scrutinizing themselves. But I don't know about you guys, but I am so kind to my friends. I'm the first person to compliment them, the first person to uplift them and see the best in them and others, even just a stranger on the street complimenting them. Why is it so easy to pick yourself apart, but so hard to compliment yourself? That's a question that I've been sitting with for so long and for so many years. And when I really started to wonder and really explore this own question within myself, I realized that every single time I was hard on myself, I never actually achieved anything. If anything, I was actually getting in my own way. And so that's when I committed to starting to speak to myself like I would my best friend. Now, I know it's really hard to go between picking yourself apart and then acting like you're obsessed and you're in love with yourself. It's a process and it's a journey. But what I personally do is when I feel my inner critic coming out, you can create a name for your inner critic if you want. I know a lot of people do that. But when I recognize that really harsh voice in my head, what I say to myself is, okay, I remove myself. I'm going to remove myself from the situation. I'm going to start thinking about myself as a third person. I think of what I said. Let's say I said, you know what, you're not smart. I would ask myself, if I spoke to my friend like this, would I be proud of myself? Would I be proud of the person that called someone not smart? The answer is likely no. So from that acknowledgement, I've acknowledged, okay, you know what, that's not kind. And you know what, it's not actually true. You need to ask yourself, is that true? No. 9 times out of 10, what you're saying about yourself isn't true. So the next step from there is I say to myself, okay, I am too close to myself. I am speaking to myself as I. What a lot of studies have shown is when you speak to yourself in a third person, you create this emotional distance where you're responding to someone. So and I know this sounds crazy, will start to speak to myself in a third person and build that voice and dialogue with myself. So I'll say, you know what, Yana, you have a lot more intelligence than what you realize. You can navigate this situation. Then I try and find evidence for myself. What is another situation or another time that I have proven to myself that I actually am intelligent? So for example, I don't know what it is. It can be someone else that has complimented you. It can be when you got a good grade, when you've done well in university, when you've been congratulated in your job, when someone's been in awe of you. Find any sort of evidence to validate you. And I promise you, it's difficult initially, but then you will find yourself being kinder to yourself in certain situations that previously you would have ripped yourself apart from. And I promise you, you will start to feel better. And just like anything, just like going to the gym, this is a muscle. And the more that you practice it, the more you practice self-compassion, the easier it will become. And when you do have that voice of doubt, accept it, become familiar with it, know that it is normal, but it's actually your nervous system probably asking you for a little bit more love and compassion. This podcast is proudly brought to you by Imbibe, where clean beauty meets clinical innovation. This is an ingestible skincare brand I have been using for years and swear by. I add a teaspoon of the Miracle Collagen into my morning coffee every single morning, and it has helped grow my hair to be so long, thick, and luscious. I have a discount code FHS20 where you can access 20% off all of Imbibe's range for the podcast live dates, which are March 11th through to May 11th. This excludes sale dates, which are March 17th through to March 23rd. I promise you guys are going to love these products just as much as I do. Happy shopping. The fourth thing. This has been on my list of habits for the last 2 years and has been the most transformative. Consistency over strictness. I can admit, I have set the craziest, most extreme, strict New Year's resolutions goals that have just set myself up for failure. And that is because I never really recognized the human element. You're not a robot. You are not boring. You are not perfect. Perfect, if I learned one thing from therapy, literally, perfection is boring and it's also very predictable. You do not achieve success through doing one grand, extreme gesture, action. How you achieve success is through being consistent and showing up daily. Now, your best might look different every single day, but one thing is you need to commit to what it is that you're doing and your vision. So, I'm going to provide you guys an example. Just as I spoke previously about meditation, I committed to myself. This year, I said, I will meditate every single day. Now, this year, I've had a lot of work on. I've had different events, I've had photo shoots, stuff happening where I have to be on set. I'm up at 5 a.m., I'm coming home really late. I made that commitment to myself. And let me tell you one thing, if you find it difficult to say no to other people and to let them down, why would you let yourself down? You owe it to yourself to be consistent and to follow up with your word that you have given yourself. So, with that in mind, I was like, you know what? I'm treating this like a contract. I have a contract with myself. I will meditate every single day. And I did stick to it until last week because I'm not perfect. I completely forgot last Saturday to meditate. And then I woke up on Sunday and I was like, oh my God, I forgot to meditate. And I've gone on my high horse on social media and said, guys, you know what? I've meditated every single day this year. Well, guess what? No, I haven't. And instead of being hard on myself, you know what I realized? That's okay. You miss one day. That is fine. But don't allow yourself to miss the next day. Because if you miss the next day, that is creating a habit. And I think when you accept that, you know what, you're not going to be perfect all the time, but you will maintain that consistency. You accept that you're not perfect and you can continue to go and strengthen that relationship with yourself where you do show up for yourself. And it's not this all or nothing approach like what people do with extreme diets or extreme exercise. That is what I found has really worked for me. And that is where you will see consistent progress and long-term goals and habits evolve. And it'll become this thing where you don't even think about it. Something is always better than nothing. Okay, number 5. This is one that I love for creating a lot of new energy into my life. If I get a new opportunity come up, let's say I'm invited to an event, a friend might ask me out, anything work related or any sort of situation in life, I ask myself, is it an immediate yes? If it's not an immediate yes, it's a no. I think it's very easy, again, particularly as women, to feel pressure to say yes because we want to be liked. We don't want to offend people. I know, for example, let's say my brother, he doesn't want to go out. He doesn't want to go to our group dinner. That's so fine. No one thinks too much into it. Whereas us women, if we don't go to the baby shower, if we don't go to the wedding, if we don't go to the girls' dinner, someone thinks there's something wrong with us, someone gets offended. There is so much pressure that we put on ourselves to constantly show up, yet we don't often look and manage our own energy and what lights us up. You reach a certain point where you get burnt out and you think, enough is enough. I'm not living my life for me, and this doesn't feel good. I felt a lot like that last year. I felt like I'm being used for other people's agenda. I'm over it. Like, I want to live my life for me. So now when a new opportunity and event comes up, I say, is it a yes? Am I excited by this? If the answer is no, I'm sorry, but I'm not going. And now I know there's little day-to-day things that you have to do. Like, obviously not everything I do excites me, but for the most part, it does. And the reason is, again, as I mentioned, everything you do, I think about as a muscle. It is really hard to learn how to say no. But as time goes by, it becomes a lot easier. And what I found through saying no is often people actually understand your boundaries, also your self worth. It's not normal for people to have access to you 24/7 and to feel like you have to say yes to everything and you have to be on. For me, I personally don't think that that is normal. And through saying no, I've realized that people have actually become to learn to appreciate me more, to respect me more. And it's created a lot of free time where I can actually do things that fill up my own cup. I might say no to going to an event because I actually just want to go for a walk and unwind after work. And through doing so, I've gotten to know myself better, and more opportunities that are aligned have found their way to me. The right people and the people that care about you, if you treat them with respect, will not be offended by you saying no and you honoring yourself. Now, the final habit, this is a habit focused on taking action, is not procrastinating. So, the biggest way to stop procrastinating is don't delay taking action. A couple years ago, I was in New York and I was having coffee with one of my friends, and his dad is in his 70s. He's very successful globally. And we were just reflecting on his dad and his career and whether he would retire or not. And my friend was saying how much energy his dad has. He's still traveling all the time. He's working on so many projects. He's like, I don't know how he does it. And then I got thinking about my dad. I'm like, my dad's the exact same. Like the amount of businesses he's running, things on his plate, people he's looking after, dogs he's looking after, me he's looking after, treating me like I'm a child and I'm 27, like taking care of all of us. I'm like, how the hell does he do it? And I feel so overwhelmed with my life and I'm just an individual. And we both realized that they had one thing in common. They didn't spend time thinking about what they were doing. They just did it. They took action. When you spend time ruminating over what you've got to do, creating this huge list and not actually taking action, you attach this emotional charge to the action and it becomes so much of a bigger deal than what it actually is. You hype it up, you make it this big deal, and then you end up delaying it until you're probably reaching a deadline or you start to feel bad about yourself. And then you're like, you know what? It's too late. The best thing and what I have realized has made a difference within my personal life, but also has carried to my business is I think and I ask myself, what can I do today that will make my tomorrow easier? So, for example, let's say you're driving home and it's after work and you realize that your tank of petrol is running low. Instead of waiting the next morning to go and fill up your tank of petrol, I know that you're tired, but you drive to the petrol station and you fill it up with petrol so that today's problem doesn't become a tomorrow's problem. It's little simple things like that. Another example, something that I do all the time is after I drink my morning coffee in bed, instead of waiting until the end of the day once I've done everything to clean and go put my coffee cup away, as soon as I go back downstairs, it's coming with me. I'm walking out the door, I'm tidying up slowly. Taking these little small actions and just doing it, even though you can't be bothered, even though you can do it later, doing those small little things actually makes it a lot easier to take action in your personal life and also in your work life. I'm going to give a work example. Even just, for example, I've started running ads within my business. I signed up to do an ads course because I thought that I needed to learn everything. I needed to do everything. I kept delaying it to the point where I had again hyped it up in my head because I'd put so much pressure for these ads to perform instead of actually just taking action, which is hilarious because now it's something that I work on every single day and it's actually really easy for me. But the way that I got myself to this point to be able to do that within my business is I started really small within my personal life. And I'm telling you, when you start to do these small little things and you actually follow through with them, you start to build trust within yourself. You start to build confidence that you are going to do the things that you said you were going to do because you actually see the big picture and you see the vision and you see that these goals, they're not these huge distant things. They actually can just be broken down into small little steps and habits that you chip away at every single day. And then one day, it might be a year later, you actually look back on your life and you think, okay, every single day has looked the same. But then when you zoom out, you look at the big picture and you actually reflect on the one year, you think, oh my gosh, my life is so different. If I look back exactly where I was a year ago and I think about all the big things that's changed, I've gotten huge distribution with my business, which was a massive goal of mine and felt really distant. We're also sitting here today recording this podcast, which is something that I've been wanting to do for years. A couple weeks ago, which I think by the time this podcast will be out, I shot a campaign. I was approached by one of the major retailers, department stores in Australia to do a full interview on myself and the business. My nervous system is a lot more regulated. I actually feel like everything I'm doing aligned. I was flown out by a clothing brand to Greece to share my story and host a beautiful trip in Greece. All of these are things that I wasn't able to have as goals. I didn't have the foresight to have as New Year's resolutions, but they came because I had that trust through following through with my habits and what I said to myself. And I focused on building. And when you build your own habits and you focus on building your life, the right things come. So, with that said, I hope you guys have the trust and the level of respect for yourself that you truly believe that you can achieve whatever it is that you want. Start small. Think of one thing that is going to make your tomorrow easier and start with today. It might be bulk washing all of your vegetables for a day or for 2 days. Anything small. Just know that your belief in yourself and your ability to follow through with these habits is the most important thing, and have the final picture in sight, which is how good and proud of yourself you're going to be when you hold your word to yourself. Anyways, I love you guys. I hope you love this season. And if you've listened this far, thank you so much. And I hope you have a beautiful day. And I can't wait to see all your dreams come true.